It was a quiet night on the edge of the desert. The wind moved slowly across the sand, and the stars above looked like cold diamonds. Ethan Cole sat outside his small cabin, drinking coffee after a long day of work. He was an engineer who fixed machines for nearby farms. His life was simple and lonely, just the way he liked it. But that night, something broke the peace. A bright flash ripped across the sky, lighting up the desert like daylight for a moment. Ethan blinked, confused. At first, he thought it was a shooting star, but then the light grew bigger and louder. A deep roaring sound followed, shaking the ground beneath his feet. Something was falling fast from the sky, leaving behind a trail of blue fire. It wasn't a normal meteor, it looked alive. Ethan grabbed his flashlight and his old truck keys. His heart beat faster. Curiosity pushed away fear. He drove across the empty road, following the blue smoke in the distance. The air smelled strange, like burning metal and ozone. When he reached the crash site, his truck's headlights revealed a large crater in the sand. Pieces of glowing metal were scattered everywhere, still hot from the fall. Steam rose from the hole. Ethan stepped closer, his boots crunching on the hot sand. He expected to see a rock or maybe a crashed drone. But inside the crater, something small was moving. He aimed his flashlight and froze. There, curled up and shaking, was a creature. It was unlike anything he had ever seen, small like a cat, with smooth silver skin that shimmered softly under the light. Its eyes were big, bright blue, and full of fear. The creature whimpered like a lost puppy. Ethan's first instinct was to back away, but the sound made his heart ache. It looked hurt. One of its legs was bleeding with glowing blue liquid. "Hey there," he whispered, kneeling down slowly. "It's okay, I won't hurt you." The creature tilted its head, watching him carefully. Then it made a weak sound, almost like it understood. Ethan hesitated for a moment, looking around. The wreckage was spread wide, and the ground was still hot. Something inside the crater was humming softly, like a dying engine. He reached out slowly and touched the creature. Its skin felt warm and soft, almost like velvet. It flinched but didn't fight. He lifted it gently into his arms. It was light, too light for its size. The creature looked up at him, its blue eyes dimming as if losing strength. "You're gonna be fine," Ethan said quietly. "Let's get you out of here." He carried it to his truck, wrapped it in an old jacket, and drove back toward his cabin. As he drove, the creature made soft noises, like it was trying to speak. Ethan kept glancing at it, wondering what it was. An experiment. A new kind of animal. Or something not from this world. When he reached home, he placed the creature on a blanket near the fire. It watched him with half-open eyes. Ethan cleaned its wound carefully. The blue blood shimmered but didn't burn. He wrapped the leg in cloth, hoping it would help. "You're tougher than you look," he murmured. The creature blinked slowly and made a soft purring sound. For a strange moment, Ethan felt peace. He smiled a little. "Guess I can't just leave you out there." He looked at the glowing collar around its neck. It had strange symbols, ones he couldn't understand. They pulsed gently with golden light. "Probably your name tag," he joked. But when he touched it, a tiny spark ran through his fingers. "Whoa, okay, no touching." He laughed nervously. Outside, the wind was picking up, howling across the desert. Somewhere far above, something blinked in the sky, a light, faint but steady, moving slowly across the stars. Ethan didn't notice it. He was too focused on the small creature now sleeping by the fire. It looked peaceful, even innocent. "You need a name," he whispered. He thought for a moment. "Nova. That's what I'll call you. You came down from the stars, after all." The creature stirred, making a soft chirp, almost like it liked the name. Ethan smiled. "Nova it is." He sat beside it, watching the fire crackle. His mind spun with questions. If this thing wasn't from Earth, then what else was out there? Would someone come looking for it? He shook his head. Maybe it was all just a strange dream. But as the night grew deeper, the desert outside came alive with strange sounds. Faint humming noises echoed in the distance, machines moving in the dark. A shadow passed over the window for just a second, silent and large. Ethan stood up quickly, looking outside, but there was nothing there. Only the moonlight and the endless sand. He turned back to Nova, who was now glowing softly in its sleep. The collar's light pulsed faster, like a heartbeat. Ethan frowned. Something about that rhythm made him uneasy. It was like the creature was calling out, to someone, somewhere. He sighed and sat back down, rubbing his tired eyes. "We'll figure it out in the morning," he said softly. "For now, you just rest." Nova's small body shimmered with faint blue light. Outside, the humming grew distant again, disappearing into the night. Ethan thought it was over. He didn't know that far above the clouds, hidden in the dark of space, massive ships were scanning the planet. Searching. Listening. And one signal had just answered back, from inside his cabin. The morning sun rose over the desert, filling Ethan's cabin with soft golden light. He woke up stiff and tired, still sitting in the chair beside the fireplace. For a moment, he thought last night had been a dream, until he saw the small creature curled up on the blanket. Nova was still there, sleeping peacefully, its silver skin now a softer shade, glowing faintly in the light. Ethan rubbed his face and let out a deep breath. "Well, you're real," he muttered. He walked to the kitchen and made himself some coffee, glancing over every few seconds to check if the creature was still breathing. When he came back, Nova was awake, blinking slowly and looking around with curious eyes. Ethan smiled nervously. "Hey there, little guy," he said gently. Nova tilted its head, making a soft chirp. Then, to his surprise, it tried to stand up but stumbled, its injured leg still weak. Ethan quickly knelt down and steadied it. "Easy, easy," he whispered. "You're still healing." The creature made another sound, almost like a question. Ethan chuckled. "Yeah, I know. You probably have no idea what I'm saying." He poured some water into a small bowl and placed it near Nova. To his amazement, Nova sniffed it and then began to drink, small blue ripples forming in the bowl. Ethan sat back, watching with fascination. "You really are something else," he murmured. After drinking, Nova walked a few steps toward him, wobbling slightly, and then climbed into his lap. Ethan froze. The creature's skin was warm against his hand, and it purred softly, like it felt safe. "Well," Ethan said with a smile, "I guess we're friends now." Over the next few days, their bond grew stronger. Nova healed faster than he thought possible. The cut on its leg closed in just 2 nights, leaving behind a faint silver scar. It started exploring the cabin, poking its small face into cupboards, drawers, and even his toolbox. Ethan laughed every time it tripped over something or tried to chase dust motes in the sunlight. It was like having a pet, but smarter, too smart. One morning, Ethan noticed something strange. While he was fixing his old radio, Nova sat nearby watching closely. When Ethan dropped a screwdriver, Nova reached out its tiny paw and the tool lifted into the air by itself, floating back into Ethan's hand. He stared in shock. "How did you?" He stopped mid-sentence, not believing what he saw. Nova looked up, eyes bright, and chirped happily as if proud. Ethan slowly smiled. "You can move things, telekinesis." Nova tilted its head, blinking curiously. Ethan leaned back, half amazed and half nervous. "You're full of surprises, aren't you?" From that day, strange things began to happen. Lights flickered when Nova was excited. Metal objects would vibrate when it purred. Ethan wasn't scared, he was fascinated. It felt like he had found something extraordinary. He started talking to Nova like a friend. When he worked on machines, Nova watched. When he ate, Nova sat beside him, mimicking his gestures. Sometimes, it even tried to speak, repeating short words in a broken, echo-like voice. The first time it said Ethan, he nearly dropped his coffee. "You said my name," he whispered, stunned. Nova chirped again, repeating it clearer, "Ethan." Ethan laughed out loud. "That's amazing." It was strange how fast their friendship grew. Ethan had never been close to anyone in years, not since his wife passed away long ago. He had built walls around his heart, living alone in silence. But Nova broke through those walls without even trying. The small creature followed him everywhere, curious about everything. When Ethan worked outside repairing solar panels, Nova would sit nearby, its eyes scanning the sky as if watching something far away. At night, Nova would sit by the window, staring at the stars, humming a soft tune that made Ethan feel calm. But peace never lasts. One evening, as the sky turned orange, Ethan heard a low rumble. He stepped outside, frowning. The sound wasn't thunder, it was mechanical, deep and humming. He looked up and saw 3 strange lights moving slowly across the clouds. They weren't planes. They made no sound except a faint buzzing that made his chest vibrate. "What the hell?" he whispered. Nova rushed to the window, eyes glowing brighter. It made a frightened sound, backing away. Ethan noticed the golden collar on its neck flickering rapidly. "Nova, what's wrong?" he asked, stepping closer. The creature looked at him, then toward the sky, trembling. Ethan picked it up gently. "It's okay, we're safe," he said, even though he didn't believe it. The lights disappeared behind the hills after a few minutes, but the fear stayed. That night, Ethan couldn't sleep. He sat by the fire, holding Nova close. "You're not from here, are you?" he said softly. "And I think someone's looking for you." Nova didn't respond, just nuzzled against his arm. The next morning, the world started changing. News reports talked about unknown crafts seen in the sky over multiple countries. Governments called them weather balloons, but Ethan knew better. He watched the news, heart pounding, while Nova sat quietly beside him, staring at the screen as if it understood. "They're looking for you, aren't they?" Ethan whispered. Nova looked up at him with sad eyes, and for the first time, Ethan saw a tear, blue and glowing, slide down its face. "It's okay," Ethan said, wiping it gently. "You're safe here with me." But even as he said the words, he knew they might not be true. That night, he double-checked the doors and turned off all the lights. He sat beside Nova, who had fallen asleep near the window. Outside, the desert wind was calm, but above the clouds, something was moving. Faint beams of light scanned across the sand far in the distance, slow and methodical, like hunters searching for a signal. In the dark cabin, the golden collar on Nova's neck pulsed again, brighter this time. Ethan watched, his stomach tightening. "What are you really, Nova?" he whispered. But there was no answer, only the soft hum of the collar, beating like a tiny heart, calling to something far beyond the stars. 3 days had passed since Ethan last saw the strange lights in the sky, but the memory still haunted him. Every night he went outside and scanned the horizon, hoping it had all been his imagination. But deep down, he knew the truth. Something was coming. The air itself felt heavier, charged with quiet tension. Even Nova seemed different. The little creature, once playful and curious, had grown restless. It often stood near the window, staring up at the stars as if waiting for something, or someone. The golden collar around its neck now glowed faintly all the time, pulsing with a slow rhythm like a heartbeat. Ethan tried to distract himself with work, repairing old machines for nearby farms, but his thoughts kept drifting back to the crash, to the blue fire that fell from the sky, and to the creature sleeping by his fire. One evening, while fixing his radio, static filled the air. At first, he thought it was interference, but then a faint, distorted voice broke through the noise. It wasn't English. The words were sharp, echoing, alien. Ethan froze, staring at the radio. The voice repeated a few times, then faded back into static. Nova, sitting nearby, suddenly lifted its head, eyes glowing brighter. It made a soft, worried sound and backed away from the device. "Nova, you understand that, don't you?" Ethan asked softly. The creature didn't move. It just looked at him with sad, frightened eyes. "Who was that?" he whispered. Before he could touch the dial again, the radio hissed violently and went dead. The power in the cabin flickered, then shut off completely. The only light came from Nova's glowing skin and the faint orange of the fire. Ethan looked out the window and froze. The sky was filled with movement, shadows gliding silently across the stars. For a moment, he thought it was clouds, but then one of the shapes turned, revealing a smooth metallic surface reflecting moonlight. It wasn't one ship. It was many. A fleet. Massive and silent, moving in formation. Ethan's heart raced. "Oh no," he whispered. Nova whimpered softly, its body trembling. "They found you," Ethan said, realizing the truth. "They are here." He turned off the fire and crouched by the window, watching the distant ships. They didn't attack, didn't move closer, just hovered far above, as if waiting. Then, out of nowhere, a sound filled the air, a deep, rumbling vibration that made his teeth chatter. It wasn't just in the cabin, it was everywhere. It came from the sky itself. Ethan grabbed his radio again, but it stayed silent. The sound grew louder, then stopped suddenly. The silence that followed was worse. Then came the message. It wasn't through the radio, it came through every device on Earth. Phones, TVs, satellites, all at once. The same voice Ethan had heard earlier now spoke clearly in perfect English, calm and commanding. To the people of Earth. You have something that belongs to us. Return it, or face destruction. Ethan stared at the small creature beside him. They mean you, he said in disbelief. They're talking about you, Nova. The message repeated twice, then ended. Outside, the desert fell silent again, but the world had changed. Ethan turned on his old television using backup power. Every channel was the same, news anchors panicking, governments holding emergency meetings, and footage of alien ships seen around the globe. People everywhere were terrified. Unknown visitors demand the return of an unidentified object, one reporter said. Ethan turned off the TV, his heart pounding. This is insane, he whispered. They can't mean you, can they? Nova looked up, blinking slowly. It made a sad noise and lowered its head. Ethan swallowed hard. You're important to them, aren't you? You're not just a stray alien. He looked at the glowing collar again. It wasn't decoration, it was a mark, a royal insignia. The design was elegant and symmetrical, like something made for nobility. The realization hit him like lightning. You belong to someone powerful, he whispered. Someone out there. That night, the world didn't sleep. Military jets filled the skies, cities went into lockdown, and people flooded the internet with videos of alien ships. But none of them knew what the aliens were looking for. Only Ethan did. And he knew if they found Nova, it might be too late for everyone. He packed his truck with supplies, wrapped Nova in a blanket, and whispered, "We have to move." He didn't know where to go, only that he had to hide. As he drove across the desert, the night sky glowed faintly with the light of ships far above. They looked like moving stars, silent and cold. They're searching, Ethan said, gripping the wheel tightly. We can't let them find you. Nova sat beside him, trembling softly. Its eyes glowed with faint blue light, reflecting fear. Don't worry, Ethan said gently. I won't let them take you. But deep down, he knew it wouldn't be easy. These weren't humans he was running from, they were something far greater. When dawn broke, Ethan reached an old abandoned town at the edge of the desert. The buildings were falling apart, the streets silent. It was the perfect place to hide, at least for now. He parked the truck inside a crumbling warehouse and set up a small camp. Nova sat quietly, watching him. Ethan knelt beside it. You're not just some random creature, are you? Who are you really? He asked softly. Nova looked up, and for the first time, Ethan felt something in his mind, a voice, faint and broken. It wasn't speech, but emotion. Images. He saw flashes of towering cities made of crystal, ships as large as mountains, and a golden throne surrounded by stars. At its center sat a tall alien woman with eyes of fire and a crown that glowed like the sun. Then, in a whisper that seemed to come from everywhere, Ethan heard a single word, Empress. He gasped and stumbled back. You're her pet, he said in shock. The Empress's lost pet. Nova looked down, eyes filled with sadness. Ethan rubbed his face, heart racing. So that's why they're here. They're not invading, they're searching for you. He looked toward the horizon, where the faint shadow of a ship could be seen against the clouds. And if they don't find you, he whispered, they'll destroy everything to get you back. Nova made a low sound, like a cry. Ethan knelt beside it and placed a hand on its head. It's okay, he said softly. I don't care who's looking for you. I'm not giving you up. But in the distance, hidden among the dunes, small metallic drones began to rise silently, scanning the sand. They had found the signal. The hunt for Nova had begun. The following days were filled with fear and silence. Ethan and Nova moved from one abandoned place to another, never staying too long. The skies were no longer empty, they were filled with strange lights at night, moving slowly like hunters in the dark. News reports had turned from curiosity to panic. Governments urged people to stay calm while secretly preparing for war. Ethan didn't need the news to know what was happening. He could see it in the sky every night, massive shadows floating above the clouds, ships too large to be human-made. They were searching for something small, something precious. And that something was sitting beside him. Nova was changing. Its silver skin now shimmered brighter, and its eyes glowed like twin stars. Sometimes, when Ethan looked closely, he could see faint patterns of light moving across its body, like living circuits. The creature was becoming stronger each day, but also more restless. It would wake up suddenly at night, staring out the window, ears twitching to sounds only it could hear. "They're calling you, aren't they?" Ethan whispered one night as they hid in an old farmhouse. Nova turned its head slowly, eyes filled with sadness. "I know you can hear them," he said. "But if you go to them, they'll take you away, and maybe destroy everything trying to get you." Nova made a soft sound, almost like a sigh. It looked at Ethan and pressed its small paw against his hand. In that silent gesture, he felt trust, maybe even love. But their quiet moment didn't last long. A low hum filled the air, faint at first but growing louder every second. The ground trembled slightly. Ethan jumped to his feet and looked outside. A bright beam of light was sweeping across the field beyond the farmhouse, moving like a giant flashlight searching for something. "They found us," he whispered. He grabbed his backpack, scooped up Nova, and ran to the truck. The light passed over the barn, burning the wood instantly. Ethan started the engine and hit the gas, the tires spinning in the dirt. Behind them, 3 black drones descended from the sky, sleek and deadly, firing bursts of blue energy that exploded in the ground nearby. "Hold on, Nova," he shouted, swerving through the dirt road. The truck bounced and rattled as energy blasts hit the ground around them. Nova cried out, its eyes glowing bright white. Suddenly, a wave of invisible force burst outward from its body. The nearest drone was slammed out of the air like it had been hit by a storm. The others wobbled, losing balance. Ethan looked in shock. "You did that?" Nova didn't answer. It looked exhausted, its glow flickering. "It's okay," Ethan said, speeding down the road. "Just hang in there." They drove for hours until the night sky turned pale with dawn. The desert was endless, but Ethan knew he couldn't run forever. They needed somewhere to hide, somewhere deep underground. He remembered an old military bunker not far from the canyon, a forgotten Cold War relic. It was risky, but it was their only choice. When they reached it, he parked the truck behind the rocks and pulled open the rusty steel doors. The air inside was cool and dry, the silence almost too heavy. Ethan carried Nova inside and set up camp near an old generator. For the first time in days, they rested. Hours passed quietly. Ethan cleaned his rifle and listened to the faint humming of the generator. Nova lay nearby, breathing softly. Its body glowed faintly in the dim light. When Ethan looked closer, he noticed something new, a small crystal embedded in the center of Nova's chest, pulsing like a tiny star. He reached out carefully. "What is this?" he murmured. As his fingers brushed the crystal, images flashed in his mind. A great palace floating in space. Armies kneeling before a golden throne. The same Empress he had seen before in his visions, her eyes filled with sorrow. Then a voice whispered through the air, soft but powerful, "Bring it home." Ethan jerked back, breathing hard. Nova looked up, its eyes wide. "That was her," Ethan said. "The Empress. She's looking for you herself." Before he could think further, a loud explosion echoed from above. Dust fell from the ceiling. Ethan ran to the door and peered outside. A massive ship had appeared over the canyon, its engines glowing red. Drones poured out of its belly like a swarm of insects, scanning the ground. They were here. "No," Ethan muttered. "Not now." He turned to Nova. "We have to go." He picked up the creature, but before they could reach the truck, a beam of light shot down from the ship, trapping them in a circle of blue energy. Ethan felt his body freeze. He couldn't move. Nova cried out, its glow intensifying until it filled the air. The ground cracked, and a shockwave threw Ethan to the ground. The beam shattered. Nova stood glowing like a small sun, its body surrounded by rings of floating light. The drones stopped moving, their sensors confused. Nova! Ethan shouted. Stop! You'll hurt yourself. But the creature didn't stop. Its eyes burned with blue fire, and the air rippled around it. Then, suddenly, it collapsed, the light fading. Ethan ran forward, catching it in his arms. Its body was warm but weak. It's okay, I've got you, he whispered. He looked up and saw the ship retreating into the sky, as if the attack had been stopped by Nova's power. The drones withdrew too, vanishing into the clouds. Silence returned. Ethan held Nova close, heart pounding. You saved us again, he said softly. Nova opened its eyes weakly and whispered one word in a soft, trembling voice, home. Ethan froze. It had spoken clearly this time, not an echo, not a mimic. It understood. Home, he repeated. Is that where you want to go? Nova nodded weakly. Ethan looked up at the morning sky. I don't know where home is, he said, but if we don't figure it out, they'll never stop hunting you. He glanced back at the smoke rising in the distance. The world was already reacting. The aliens had made their warning clear, and governments would soon fight back. But Ethan knew fighting them was useless. The only way to end this was to understand who Nova really was, and why the Empress wanted it so badly. He held the creature close and whispered, We'll find your home, Nova. I promise. Above them, in the dark emptiness of space, the Empress's fleet moved silently, her command echoing through the void, Find my bond, before the humans destroy it. And far below, Ethan's truck rumbled to life again, heading deeper into the wastelands, unaware that he was being tracked by more than one enemy now. The next few days were the hardest Ethan had ever lived through. He and Nova kept moving, hiding by day and traveling by night. The world above was changing fast. Every time he turned on the radio, there was new chaos, alien ships hovering over oceans, governments arguing about how to respond, people running in panic. Yet through all the confusion, one message kept repeating from the alien fleet, Return what is ours, and your world will be spared. Ethan knew exactly what they wanted, but he couldn't bring himself to let Nova go. He looked at the little creature now sleeping in the passenger seat, its body faintly glowing under a blanket. It was no longer just an alien to him, it was a friend. He had seen its pain, its fear, and its kindness. There was something human about the way it looked at him, like it understood what he felt. But the more time passed, the more he realized this couldn't go on forever. The galaxy wanted Nova back, and Earth was running out of time. One evening, as the sun sank behind the mountains, Ethan parked his truck near an old radio tower deep in the desert. The sky above was glowing red from the reflection of distant fires. He knew the military was already fighting the alien scouts somewhere near the coast. We need to find answers, he muttered. He turned to Nova, who was awake now, watching him with its large blue eyes. Who are you really, Nova? Why are they doing this? Nova tilted its head, and the crystal on its chest began to shine brighter. Ethan felt a sudden warmth spread through the air, and then his vision blurred. He wasn't in the desert anymore. He was standing in a vast hall made of crystal and light. At the center sat the Empress, tall and graceful, her eyes glowing gold. Around her were guards in silver armor, bowing low. A voice echoed in his mind, not loud, but clear as thought itself. The bond has been broken too long. Return what belongs to the crown. Ethan stepped back, confused. Who are you? He asked aloud. The Empress turned her gaze to him, her expression unreadable. I am the sovereign of the Lithari Empire. The creature you shelter is not a beast, it is part of me. Ethan's heart pounded. Part of you. The Empress raised her hand, and an image appeared, Nova, as a newborn, floating in a chamber of light. It is my bonded one. Our minds are linked. When I was young, I gave part of my essence to this being. It carries my emotions, my memories, my heart. When it was stolen, I lost balance. Without it, I cannot live. The vision faded, and Ethan was back in the truck, breathing hard. Nova was watching him, eyes full of sadness. Ethan whispered, You're connected to her. If something happens to you, she'll die too. Nova blinked slowly, and a single tear of glowing blue light slid down its cheek. Ethan's mind spun. The Empress wasn't invading Earth because of power or greed, she was searching for the missing half of herself. That means, he said slowly, if I don't return you, she'll keep attacking. But if I do, I'll lose you forever. He sat back, his chest tightening. What am I supposed to do? He ran a hand through his hair, trying to think. Nova reached out with its paw and touched his arm. For a moment, Ethan felt warmth, comfort, and understanding. He knew what Nova was trying to say. It didn't want him to suffer because of it. But before he could speak, the ground trembled violently. A bright flash lit up the sky outside. Ethan jumped out of the truck and looked up. Far above, two forces were clashing, a swarm of alien ships firing beams of blue light at Earth's military defenses. Explosions painted the night sky red and gold. One of the ships broke apart and fell, crashing into the desert miles away. Ethan could feel the heat even from where he stood. They're going to destroy everything, he whispered. He turned back to Nova. We have to stop this. There's got to be a way to make them listen. He remembered the old radio tower nearby. Maybe, just maybe, he could use it to send a signal. If I can reach them directly, he said, maybe I can tell them you're alive. That you're safe. Nova tilted its head as if listening. Together, they climbed the tower as the battle raged in the sky. Ethan hooked his radio transmitter into the tower's console and switched on the power. Static filled the air. Come on, he muttered, adjusting the dials. Just work, please. He turned the MIC on and spoke, his voice shaking. This is Ethan Cole, from Earth. I have what you're looking for. I don't know who you are or what you want, but if this is about the creature, if this is about Nova, it's alive and safe. Please stop the attacks. For a moment, there was only static. Then a cold voice answered. Human, you hold the Empress's bonded one. Surrender it immediately. I can't, Ethan said firmly. If I hand it over, it might die. If that happens, your Empress dies too. You don't want that. The line went silent. Then another voice came through, softer and more regal. You speak truth, it said. Ethan froze. It was her, the Empress. Return my bond, and your world will not be harmed. If I do, Ethan said, what happens to me? What happens to Earth? You will not be destroyed, the voice said. But know this, if the bond dies, so do I, and the fleet will burn your world to ash. Ethan closed his eyes. He had no choice. Either he gave up his friend or risked the destruction of his entire planet. Give me time, he said. Please. Let me bring it to you safely. There was silence again, then the Empress replied, you have 3 cycles. Fail, and your world ends. The signal cut off. Ethan stood there, the desert wind howling around him. 3 cycles, 3 days to decide between his friend and humanity. He climbed down the tower slowly, his heart heavy. Nova looked up at him, eyes full of trust. I don't know what to do, he whispered, kneeling beside it. If I give you back, I'll lose you. But if I don't, billions could die. Nova leaned against him softly, glowing faintly. In that moment, Ethan realized something. The creature understood everything. It wasn't just alive, it was aware, intelligent, and capable of love. He hugged it close, whispering, we'll find another way. I'm not letting them take you yet. Far above them, in the cold void of space, the Empress stood before her generals. Prepare the armada, she commanded. If the human fails, Earth will burn. The morning sun rose weakly over the desert, painting the sand in shades of gold and red. Ethan hadn't slept all night. The Empress's ultimatum echoed in his mind like a ticking clock, 3 cycles, 3 days before Earth would burn. Nova was sitting quietly beside him, watching the sunrise. Its eyes glowed faintly blue, reflecting both calmness and sadness. Ethan rubbed his face and sighed. We need to move, he said softly. They'll come looking for us soon. He packed what little food and water he had left, then started the truck. The engine groaned, coughing up dust, but finally roared to life. As he drove through the empty wasteland, the radio crackled with distant news. Entire cities were being evacuated. Alien ships hovered over major capitals, but they hadn't fired again. It was as if they were waiting for him. 3 days, he muttered, glancing at Nova. 3 days to reach them. He didn't know where to go or how to reach the Empress, but something told him to head east, toward the mountains. The dreams had been guiding him for days, showing flashes of light, a hidden valley, and a massive alien gate glowing deep underground. Maybe that was where he needed to go. Hours passed, and the road grew rougher. The truck rattled as it climbed rocky hills. Nova seemed restless, shifting in its seat, sometimes pointing its paw toward the horizon as if it could sense something. "You know where to go, don't you?" Ethan said, forcing a smile. "All right, you lead." Nova chirped softly and leaned toward the mountains. By sunset, they reached a canyon that looked like it had been split open by something enormous. Strange metallic shards were buried in the rocks, half covered in sand. Ethan stopped the truck and got out to look. The air smelled faintly of burnt metal. He crouched beside one of the shards, it pulsed faintly with blue light. "This must have fallen from one of their ships," he said. "Maybe we're close." But before he could take another step, a deep humming filled the air. The ground vibrated beneath his boots. Ethan looked up and froze. 3 alien drones descended from the clouds, their sleek black bodies shaped like sharp blades, each one humming with deadly energy. "Nova, get down," he shouted. The drones circled them like predators. Then one of them projected a beam of light, scanning the truck. A cold robotic voice echoed, "Human identified. Target confirmed, Empress's bond detected." Ethan's heart pounded. They found us. He jumped into the truck, slammed his foot on the pedal, and the tires screamed as they sped away. Laser beams shot past, blasting the sand into clouds of fire and dust. Ethan swerved between boulders, trying to stay out of sight. "Hold on, Nova," he shouted as another blast hit the back of the truck, blowing off part of the tailgate. The little alien squealed, clutching the seat. Ethan gritted his teeth. "I can't outrun them forever." He looked ahead and spotted a narrow tunnel in the canyon wall. "That's it," he muttered. He drove straight toward it, pushing the engine to its limit. The truck roared into the tunnel just as another beam scorched the ground behind them. The walls were tight, scraping the sides of the truck. Sparks flew, but they made it through. The drones couldn't follow. Ethan stopped finally, breathing hard. The tunnel opened into a vast underground chamber filled with faint blue light. It looked ancient, carved with alien symbols glowing softly on the stone walls. "What is this place?" he whispered. Nova climbed out and walked forward slowly, its glow matching the symbols on the walls. The closer it got, the brighter everything became. Ethan followed carefully, flashlight in hand. They reached the center of the chamber where a huge metallic arch rose from the ground, a gate made of crystal and energy. Strange markings pulsed along its edges. Nova approached it, and the crystal on its chest started to hum. The gate responded instantly, coming to life with a low vibrating sound. A beam of blue light shot upward, painting the whole chamber in radiant glow. Ethan stepped back, shielding his eyes. "Nova, what's happening?" Nova turned toward him, eyes glowing fiercely. It made a soft, echoing sound, a call. Then the gate flickered and showed a vision, the Empress herself, standing in a vast throne room of light. Her golden eyes locked onto Ethan. "You have found the gate of Lythra," her voice echoed. "You have done well, human." Ethan swallowed hard. "I don't understand. How are you talking to me through this?" The Empress's image flickered slightly. "The gate connects all that belongs to the bond. It is how I feel the presence of my other half. You are closer than you know." "You said I had 3 days," Ethan said. "What if I bring it here? Will you stop the invasion?" The Empress's gaze softened slightly. "Bring the bond to the gate, and your world will be spared. But delay, and my armies will come." Her image faded. Ethan stood there in silence, his heart pounding. "So this is it," he murmured. "The place where it all ends." He turned to Nova, who looked tired but calm. "She's waiting for you," he said quietly. "But I'm not sure I can let you go." Nova tilted its head, then stepped closer and pressed its paw to his chest. A rush of warmth filled Ethan's body, and for a moment he saw flashes of memories. Stars, cities made of glass, a golden throne, and a childlike version of Nova playing beside the Empress. He saw laughter, love, and light. Then he saw fire, the day Nova was taken, and the Empress's cry of pain. Ethan gasped and stepped back. You were taken from her. She wasn't evil. She's just broken without you. Nova nodded slowly, eyes full of sorrow. Then why are they still attacking us? He asked. But Nova didn't answer. Instead, it looked upward, ears twitching. The hum returned. The drones had found another way in. Ethan grabbed his bag and pulled Nova close. No time. We have to move. He looked around and saw another tunnel leading deeper underground. Come on. They ran just as the first explosion shook the chamber. Blue dust and rock fragments rained from the ceiling. Ethan stumbled, pulling Nova to safety. Behind them, the gate flared brighter, as if calling them back. The sound of alien machines echoed closer and closer. Ethan's lungs burned as they ran. He didn't know where the tunnel would lead, but he knew one thing: he had to protect Nova at all costs. Even if it meant facing the Empress herself. Far above them, in orbit, the Empress stood silently in her command chamber. Her generals awaited her orders. One spoke softly, "Shall we strike now, Majesty?" The Empress raised her hand, her expression distant. "No," she said coldly. "He is bringing my bond home. But if he fails," her eyes flashed gold. "Burn the planet." The air inside the tunnel was damp and cold. Ethan could hear the faint rumble of distant machinery behind them, the alien drones still searching. He and Nova kept moving deeper underground until the blue glow from the gate faded into darkness. Ethan turned on his flashlight, its beam slicing through the dust-filled air. "We need to find another way out," he said, his voice low and tight. Nova's eyes glowed softly, helping light the path. The walls here weren't natural, they were metallic, carved with strange patterns that pulsed like veins. The deeper they went, the stronger the hum became, a deep vibration that seemed to echo inside Ethan's chest. After what felt like hours, they entered a vast chamber filled with strange technology. Giant crystal pillars rose from the floor, humming with energy, and in the center stood a round platform covered in alien runes. Nova walked toward it slowly, its chest crystal glowing brighter with every step. Ethan frowned. "Is this another gate?" Nova looked back and nodded slightly, as if understanding. Then the symbols on the floor lit up, and a blinding light surrounded them. Ethan felt his body lift from the ground, weightless for a second, and then everything disappeared. When he opened his eyes again, the world had changed. He was standing in a place that looked like nothing on Earth. The sky above was filled with 3 suns, glowing in shades of gold and violet. Floating cities hung in the air, connected by rivers of light. Strange creatures soared through the sky like living ships. It was beautiful, overwhelming, and terrifying all at once. "Where are we?" he whispered. Nova chirped softly and pointed toward a shining tower in the distance. Ethan followed its gaze and felt a chill. The tower was enormous, miles high, and at its top glowed a golden flame. He knew instantly that was where the Empress was. "We're on her world," he said slowly. "She brought us here." As they began walking, Ethan noticed people, or rather, aliens, staring at him. Tall, elegant beings with silver skin and bright eyes whispered among themselves as he passed. None of them attacked, but their expressions were full of curiosity and fear. Nova walked confidently, as if it knew this place well. It led him through glowing streets, past fountains of blue light and towering crystal statues. The further they went, the stronger Ethan felt the bond between Nova and this world. Everything seemed to respond to its presence. The lights flickered when it passed, and the air vibrated softly with energy. After a long climb up a spiral bridge made of glass, they reached the base of the golden tower. Guards in shining armor stood at the entrance. When they saw Nova, they dropped to one knee. One of them, a tall figure with wings of light, looked at Ethan and said in a deep voice, "Human. The Empress awaits." Ethan hesitated, then nodded. He followed the guards through massive golden doors into a hall that stretched endlessly upward. The walls shimmered like water, and at the far end sat the Empress herself. She looked just as she had in the visions, tall, graceful, her golden eyes glowing with power. Around her floated rings of light, slowly turning like planets around a sun. Nova stepped forward and made a soft, emotional sound. The Empress rose from her throne, her gaze softening. "My bond," she whispered. You have returned. Nova ran to her, and for a moment, the room filled with light so bright Ethan had to shield his eyes. When it faded, Nova stood beside her, glowing with joy. The Empress looked at Ethan. You have done what no other human could. You returned what was taken. Her voice was powerful, but there was gratitude in it. Ethan stepped forward slowly. I didn't do it for you, he said. I did it for them, for both of you. I just wanted to stop the fighting. The Empress tilted her head slightly. You speak truth. Your heart is strong. Yet your kind has caused much destruction. We didn't start this war, Ethan replied, his voice trembling. Your ships attacked us first. We were just defending ourselves. The Empress's expression darkened. My armies attacked because they believed you had killed my bond. Without it, I was dying. My people feared losing their ruler, their light. Desperation drives even the wise to madness. She looked down at Nova, who now stood quietly beside her. But now the bond is restored, and I am whole again. Ethan felt relief, but also sorrow. So it's over. You'll stop the war. The Empress's gaze turned distant. The war will end when balance returns. My generals will withdraw, but Earth must not forget this lesson. Power can destroy even the stars. Ethan nodded slowly. I understand. He turned to leave, but Nova made a soft sound and stepped forward. It looked at the Empress, then back at him. For a moment, its eyes shimmered with emotion. Ethan smiled sadly. I guess this is goodbye. The Empress watched silently as Nova reached out and touched Ethan's arm. A pulse of warmth spread through him, filling his heart with light. Memories, emotions, and words without sound passed between them. A farewell, a thank you, a bond that would never truly break. But before Ethan could speak again, the ground beneath them trembled violently. The lights in the hall flickered. One of the guards rushed forward. Your Majesty, he cried. The High Council has rebelled. They believe the human has corrupted the bond. They are moving to destroy him and reclaim control. The Empress's eyes flared with anger. Fools! She turned to Ethan. You must go. They will not stop until you are dead. Ethan stared at her in disbelief. What? But I thought it was over. It was, she said. Until they saw the bond respond to you. They believe you hold part of its power now. That cannot be allowed in their eyes. Ethan's heart pounded. Then what do we do? The Empress raised her hand, and the air around them began to twist. I will open a path back to your world. But once you cross it, our fates will be sealed. The bond between human and Lithari will change forever. The air filled with light again, swirling around them like a storm. Nova looked torn, its body trembling. The Empress whispered something to it in her language. Then she looked at Ethan and said softly, protect it. The bond between you is not finished yet. Before he could ask what she meant, the light consumed everything. Ethan felt himself falling through endless stars, Nova's voice echoing faintly beside him. When he opened his eyes again, he was lying in the desert, the night sky above him, the golden tower now just a fading memory. The warships in the sky were gone, but something told him it wasn't the end. Nova lay beside him, still glowing faintly, but different now, more powerful, more aware. Ethan sat up slowly, staring at the horizon where a new dawn was breaking. The Empress had saved him, but at what cost? As the first rays of light touched the desert, Nova looked up at him and spoke a single word, its first ever in human language, run. Ethan froze when Nova spoke that single word. The soft, trembling sound of run echoed through the silent desert like a warning bell. The night air suddenly shifted, carrying a strange vibration that made the ground tremble beneath his feet. He turned toward the horizon, and his blood ran cold. Dozens of lights appeared in the sky, descending fast, ships, but not like the Empress's golden vessels. These were dark, jagged, and burning with crimson light. No, Ethan whispered. It can't be over yet. Nova stood beside him, its eyes glowing brighter, the crystal in its chest pulsing wildly. The connection between them burned stronger than ever, filling Ethan's mind with fragmented images, battles, betrayal, and the face of a creature that was neither Empress nor human. Who are they? He asked, clutching his head as the visions came faster. Nova looked at him and projected one clear thought into his mind: the Council. Ethan understood immediately. The rebels. The ones who had defied the Empress. They weren't done, they wanted Nova, and they would destroy anything in their path to get it. The first of the ships roared overhead, kicking up a storm of dust and heat. Ethan grabbed Nova and ran toward the old canyon, the same one that hid the gate of Lythra. "Hold on," he shouted, his voice lost in the wind. Explosions thundered behind them as crimson beams tore through the desert. The ground erupted in walls of fire. Ethan stumbled but didn't stop. Nova's glow brightened, shielding them with a faint barrier of light. It flickered with each blast, but it was enough to keep them alive. They reached the canyon's edge just as a ship landed behind them, its ramp opening with a hiss. From the smoke emerged tall figures clad in dark armor, their faces hidden behind mirrored helmets. One stepped forward, its voice deep and metallic. "Surrender the bond, human. Your kind is not meant to hold it." Ethan stood his ground, breathing hard. "I'm not giving it to you." The leader tilted its head. "You cannot protect it. Even your Empress cannot save you now. The bond belongs to the Council." Ethan's grip tightened on Nova. "Then you'll have to take it from me." The alien raised its hand, and the soldiers aimed their weapons. Ethan knew he couldn't fight them. But Nova stepped forward suddenly, placing itself between him and the attackers. Its body began to glow so brightly the soldiers hesitated. The leader snarled, "Contain it before it fuses with the human completely." The soldiers fired. Ethan barely had time to react before a burst of blue light exploded outward from Nova, knocking everyone to the ground. When he opened his eyes, everything was still for a moment. The air shimmered with energy. Nova floated a few feet above the ground, surrounded by a sphere of light. Its body looked different now, stronger, taller, almost like a small version of the Empress herself. Ethan stared in awe. "Nova." The creature looked down at him, eyes glowing gold and blue. "Protect, life," the voice echoed in his head. Ethan realized it was speaking to him telepathically again. The soldiers rose, weapons sparking. Ethan grabbed a piece of debris and ducked behind a rock as energy blasts rained down. "We can't stay here," he shouted. Nova lifted its arms, and a shockwave rippled outward, sending the attackers flying. But more ships were arriving, filling the sky like a swarm of angry shadows. The leader spoke again, this time with fury. "The Empress has fallen. The bond will serve the Council now." Ethan's heart froze. "What did you say?" The leader laughed, a sound like metal grinding on stone. "The Empress is dead. Your sacrifice was for nothing." Ethan shook his head. "No, that can't be true." But deep down, he could feel it. The faint link he'd shared with her through Nova was fading. The Empress's presence, once a warm light in the back of his mind, was gone. "She saved us," he whispered, his voice breaking. Nova floated lower, its glow dimming. Its grief was almost tangible, like a physical weight pressing on Ethan's chest. "We can't give up," he said softly. "She wouldn't want that." Nova turned toward the canyon, where the gate of Lythra had once stood. The ground trembled again, and a low hum began to rise from beneath the sand. Ethan's eyes widened. The gate, it's still alive. Cracks spread through the canyon floor, and blue light poured out, forming massive energy streams that reached toward the sky. The alien soldiers stumbled back in fear. "It's opening," one shouted. Ethan didn't know what was happening, but he knew they had to move. He ran forward, Nova flying beside him. The ground split open completely, revealing a glowing core, a swirling portal of blue and gold energy. It pulsed with raw power. "Nova, what is this?" Ethan shouted. Nova's voice filled his mind again. "The heart. The bond's true source. Only one of us can stop the Council. One of us." Ethan looked horrified. "You mean, no. There has to be another way." But Nova shook its head slowly. "The Empress is gone. The power must live through balance. Human and bond. Together." Ethan's heart pounded. "If you do this, you'll die." "Not die. Become more." The soldiers were closing in fast. Ethan could hear their boots pounding against the rocks. Nova, please. But Nova only smiled, a small, sad, beautiful smile, and placed its paw on his chest. A surge of light enveloped him. He gasped as visions filled his mind again, the Empress's memories, the history of her people, the true nature of the bond. It wasn't just a creature, it was life itself, born from the heart of a dying star, meant to connect all living beings across galaxies. And now, its power was being shared with him. Ethan fell to his knees, glowing with the same blue light. Nova floated higher, its body merging with the energy of the portal. The soldiers fired one last time, but their blasts were swallowed by the light. Then, with a sound like thunder tearing through the heavens, the portal erupted. A wave of energy shot into the sky, sweeping across the desert, across the planet, across space itself. The Council's ships disintegrated instantly, their crimson lights snuffed out like candles. Ethan screamed as the light consumed him, but it wasn't pain. It was warmth, infinite and peaceful. When the light finally faded, the canyon was silent. The sky was clear again. The ships were gone. Ethan stood alone at the center of a massive crater, the sand fused into glass. He looked around, his heart aching. Nova. There was no answer. Only silence. But then, faintly, he felt it, a presence, warm and familiar, inside his mind. A soft voice whispered, "We are one now." Ethan looked up at the stars, tears in his eyes. The Empress was gone, but her legacy, and Nova's, lived on through him. The war was over. Humanity was safe. But Ethan knew this wasn't the end. Somewhere beyond the stars, a new empire was being born, one not ruled by fear or conquest, but by the bond between two worlds. He took a deep breath, watching the dawn break over the horizon. "We did it, Nova," he whispered. "We really did it." And as the first light touched the earth, the faint glow of blue shimmered in his eyes, proof that the bond, the heart of the empire, still lived within him.